Peter Greenberg's Global Travel Update is presented by New Mexico True.
Next, downtown local 6 train to Brooklyn Bridge City Hall will arrive in 2 minutes.
Well, it'll arrive a little bit later because that's a misleading graphic there. I'm actually out in Long Island today, but I started this morning in New York City. Hi, everybody. Happy Thursday. Welcome to our global travel update for this week. Lots of stuff going on. As many of you know, last week I was in Lesotho, the mountain kingdom in Africa. Most people don't even know where it is or that it's even existing, but it's there. One of 54 countries in Africa, one of 3 kingdoms in Africa, the other 2 being Eswatini. Some of you may remember that being the former Swaziland. And then in Northern Africa, Morocco. We were there filming my latest Royal Tour special that'll be airing later this year with the King of Lesotho. Not an easy place to get to. About 27 to 28 hours in the air, not counting layovers. And of course, given what's going on in Iran, the airspace to get there somewhat challenged. We flew there through Doha and Qatar. And the minute we took off from Qatar to go to Johannesburg, of course, that's when Iran retaliated against the latest U.S. attack on Iran by attacking Qatar and Bahrain. They closed the airspace for about 12 hours, but this time they didn't close it for 8 days. They closed it for about 12 hours. So it stayed open long enough for us to get back. But we were looking at all of our other options going through Amsterdam, going through London, going through Paris, going through Istanbul. But it's still a problem area there because no matter where you're flying, because of the airspace being so challenged in so many parts of the world, airlines have to carry more fuel. They have to fly longer on these overflights. And you know what that does to airfares, which brings me, of course, to the next subject, airfares. You still have the CEOs of Delta, United, and Southwest saying, don't hold your breath, airfares aren't coming down. Well, they may be right, except for next month. Airfares, I said this last week, it's still holding true this week. Airfares are down 6% next month, meaning August, over last year. Quite remarkable when you figure out what fuel prices are. And the airlines attempt to recoup everything. But the reason why they're down isn't because the airlines are being generous. It's because American travelers are now holding back on taking those other flights. The airfares just got too expensive. And so a lot of excess capacity, a lot of excess seats in the month of August. And we're starting to see it even in September. Southwest Airlines having a fare right now, 40% off their base fares for August and September. That tells you everything you need to know. So watch this space. We'll be staying on top of that. Also, the United States government issuing a travel advisory this week, a level 2 travel advisory of all places for the Turks and Caicos. Now, every time you hear the 3 words State Department advisory, you go into the fetal position. You don't want to go anywhere. It's got such a negative connotation. But what does a level 2 mean? To me, it's meaningless. It's meaningless. It means travel with increased caution. You know what that means? Be situationally aware. And why did they issue a level 2 for the Turks and Caicos? A little bit more increase in street crime, some gangs. By the way, if you applied the same metrics that the State Department did for foreign countries to the U.S., you'd never leave Cleveland. You'd never leave Maryland. You'd never leave Chicago. You'd never leave any major U.S. city. It would all be level 2, as it should be for any time you travel. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't travel. Remember, if there's a riot in Cincinnati, it doesn't mean you can't go to Cleveland. Well, you're still painting with too broad a brush. But anyway, that's your level 2. For those of you who don't know what level 3 and level 4 are, I'll tell you. Oh, by the way, level 1 is the one that makes me laugh. Travel with normal caution. Every country right now has a level 1, at least to start, right? Level 2, increased caution. Level 3, reconsider travel. By this time, you're in a bunker. And level 4, do not travel. May I remind everybody that it's not a rule, it's not a law, it's not a regulation. It's an advisory. Do your homework before you do that. You're going to make an intelligent, informed decision that will allow you to decide where you're going to travel. And speaking of traveling, I know it's the summer, everybody's going on vacation, but the latest research is in on where Americans are not just traveling, not for vacation, but they're actually traveling to move permanently somewhere else. Now, where are we relocating? According to that research, the fastest growing states where people are moving to, try South Carolina, Idaho, North Carolina, Texas, and Florida. Conversely, where are the states we're leaving the most? Not surprisingly, California, Hawaii, cost of living, Vermont, West Virginia, and New Mexico. Just thought I'd share that. Now, I got to share with you a rather sad anniversary. It's tomorrow, July 17th. Go back to July 17th, 1996. I'll tell you where I was that day. It's a story I covered, and for all sakes and purposes, I'm still covering it. I was in Atlanta for NBC as they were getting ready to start the Olympics. Right? Can you believe that? 30 years ago, the Atlanta Olympics. And I was leaving that night, going from Atlanta to JFK and then on to Europe for another story. It was blisteringly hot, much like it is today in most of the United States. Over 90 degrees in most places in New York, over 96 degrees that day on July 17th. I'm changing planes at Kennedy and changing planes to go to Italy. So I make my change of the plane. I start taxiing from the tarmac, and I pass a number of terminals, including the TWA terminal, where they had a lot of 747s lined up. And then it was, of course, congested at Kennedy. And we had to wait our turn and wait our turn and wait our turn. We finally take off. And I was actually in the cockpit of that plane for reasons I can explain later. And when I got tapped on the shoulder because they had just received a radio call, and we looked out the window to see the ocean on fire. Right? We hadn't taken off for long when that happened. That was TWA Flight 800. You may remember that terrible day. That particular plane had taken off from Athens for New York that day, had experienced serious headwinds. So when they landed in New York, they had exhausted most of their fuel. The wing tanks were essentially empty, and there's only about 135 kilograms of jet fuel left in the center tank. And then they're going to turn it around and fly it back to Europe. Well, they're only having a load that night of 226 people, 212 passengers, 14 crew. The plane held about 434 people, and they were going to be in a tailwind. So they didn't have to load fuel into the center tank, just the wing tanks, right? Keep the balance up, increase the plane's performance, efficiency, and fuel burn. And so they took off. And what they didn't realize, and they had no way of knowing at that point, remember I said how hot that day was? Well, the APU, that stands for the Auxiliary Power Unit, every major jet has one, which provides electrical current to the plane to keep the AC going and the lights on when the plane's at the gate or otherwise not plugged in to external power. Well, it was on that day when TWA flight was coming in from Athens and when it landed. But it was so hot out there on the runway that the combination of the outside temperature and the temperature formed by the APU heated up the center fuel tank where we had that 135 kilograms of fuel, very small amount, just sloshing around in there, and the fumes that were in there. It heated up that tank to what we call the flash point, where the mixture of fuel and fumes, if anything were to set it off, it would explode. It would have already vaporized. So they didn't fill the center fuel tanks, and off they go to Europe. They get to about 8,000 feet, and the flight engineer, a three-man crew in those days, notices that there seems to be more fuel on the left side than the right side. It wouldn't affect the safety of the plane, but it would affect the performance of the plane. So they said, we should switch tanks, a standard procedure. So they turned the pump on the left wing to pump fuel into the center wing, which they did in the tank. And then when they turned the pump in the center tank on to pump it to the right tank in the wing, the fuel lines, not the lines, but the electrical wires inside that tank, it was an older 747, had been so corroded by the toxicity of fuel over the years that the insulation had essentially been stripped, and you had bare wires. And when they turned the current on, the wires arced. And when that spark hit, well, we know what happened. The cockpit and nose of the plane blew off. And we all know what happened after that. By the time the rescuers got out there over Long Island, it was just wreckage and debris. All 226 people killed. It was the most amazing investigation, or one of the most amazing post-crash investigations I've ever been involved in. We all know that the NTSB does unbelievable work, but remember when this occurred, right at the beginning of the Olympics, and everybody thought it was terrorism. Everybody thought it was an act of a gang and looking for explosives, much like Pan Am 103 back in 1988. But that was not the case this time. It was an exploded center fuel tank caused by the electrical current arcing in that tank. And what did the investigators do? As they recovered the wreckage, and my fire department also responded because it was off the coast of Fire Island, they rebuilt that plane piece by piece on a skeleton in Smithtown, Long Island, so they could examine every fragment, every bend of the metal, every residue left to try to figure out what happened. And they did. Of course, the conspiracy theorists are still out there saying it was down by a Navy missile from the United States. Nope, not true. Or there was an explosive placed in one of the seats. Also not true. In fact, once they get closer and closer to the conclusion, the NTSB went out to an older generation 747 parked out in the desert in Arizona, a former America West 747, and simulated the same arc in the center fuel tank. Guess what? Exactly the same thing happened. Those wires had been stripped as well of their insulation. In any case, one of the more amazing investigations, one of the more tragic cases in which we learned from it and we applied those lessons about how do you maintain a plane. You know, there was no manual about how to maintain the plane in its 21st year. Now they have it. But anyway, July 17th, 1996, TWA Flight 800, 30 years ago tomorrow. Wow. All right, moving along. The latest research is in from the folks at PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, but they don't like you to call them that. It's PwC. And what's it on? The new GLP era of travel, or I should say GLP-1 era of travel. And the adoption rate is staggering. Only about 8 months ago, they figured about 8% of the adult population might be using one. They're up to 20% now. Wow, that's huge. And what does it mean? Radical changes in our behavior, not just our weight, our behavior because of that weight, right? We're buying more produce. We're buying more protein packaged foods, proteins, high fiber foods. We're dehydrating, or we are hydrating more. And then we're buying less alcohol. When we eat out, guess what? You're getting goodie bags to go because you're either not finishing your meal or you're sharing it with your partner. You're buying new clothes because your sizes have changed. So the business dynamics have changed. You're buying new jewelry because now you want to show off the new you. What's interesting is, how does that affect those other businesses? Retail is doing great with the GLP buyers, right? Restaurants, not so great. Alcohol consumption way down. They're trying to increase the price of their mocktails, which are ridiculously overpriced now. And there are even other aspects of this that nobody counted on. Forget the high fuel prices caused by the war in Iran. The airlines are actually reporting, which they don't want to boast about now, but it's a fact. They're expecting between a 1% and 2% savings in fuel every year because their planes, because of all the GLP users, are now lighter. It's wild. And no sign at all that this is going to subside. And now, because of some Medicare deals, people over the age of 65 are going to get discounts on the GLP-1s, which tend to be very expensive. And we'll see where that goes. But that's interesting to note about all the weight loss and what people are doing. Moving along, I have my nickel and dime award for the week. All right. It goes to Las Vegas. It goes to the Cosmopolitan. One of the guests there had stayed there before and just could not deal with ordering room service for an avocado toast and being billed $40 for it. So when they checked into the Cosmopolitan recently, here it comes, they BYOT. They brought their own toaster. That's right. And, we're going to see more and more of that. But anyway, but now, speaking of nickel and diming, because the numbers are down in Las Vegas, what are we seeing? More and more of those hotels and casinos and resorts getting rid of the dreaded resort fee. More and more of them bundling everything into an all-inclusive experience, obviously exception of the spa, at some of those hotels. So check that out. Law of supply and demand is speaking right here. All right. Before I get to say hello to everybody, I want to show you a graphic that I just got, which before you post it, Anthony, I want to give some background here. What do you do when you go to an airport? Well, first of all, you check in. If you have bags, you check those. If you're on an international flight, once you get through security, you got to go through passport control and immigration. So you've cleared two areas, right? You've cleared security and you've cleared passport and immigration control. And you already know you can't bring your liquids in and you can't bring your lotions and your potions. Okay. And you're taking a flight back home to the United States. So as you're walking to your gate, you got to go through the gauntlet of retail, right? That's how that's how airports make money. What's the one thing you want to buy at retail? It's going to be a long flight. The bottle of water you couldn't bring with you, or the Diet Coke, or the juice. And so you do. And give the credit card, I give you the thing, you put it in your carry-on bag. You've already gone through security, right? And all the products that you bought in that store have presumably cleared security as well. Otherwise, they couldn't go there. And now you get to your gate, and they take your liquids away. Why? Because here we are approaching the 25th anniversary of 9/11, and any flight to the U.S. is considered a high-risk, high-profile flight, but nobody tells you at the retail level that you can't bring your drinks after you cleared security. So a few little cheers and kudos to United Airlines for sending me this. Now, did the airport tell me that was going to happen? Nope. Did any other airline tell me that was going to happen? Nope. Did security tell me it was going to happen? Nope. Did the passport control and immigration tell me no? Did the retailer tell me? Of course not. And yet they all took it away. So now you know, if you're on a flight going to the United States from a foreign country, a reasonably good chance you better read this. Otherwise, you just wasted your money. So just wanted to share that with you. But at least United Airlines is being forthcoming here, because obviously they've been getting a lot of complaints about it too. Now, if you're on the plane and you want a water, what do you have to remember? And you see the flight attendant coming down the aisle with a tray of plastic glasses and water. Should you drink that water? And the answer is a qualified no. Why? Because there's so many people getting on the plane unable to bring their waters that the airlines often run out of water during the flight. So what are they refilling the cups with? Holding tank water. Yeah, that's got the bacteriological equivalent of the bar scene from Star Wars. So unless you see the flight attendant and you physically see the flight attendant snap open a bottle of unopened, pure water, don't drink it. Also, you need to go to the bathroom on the flight? Well, you're going to go wash your hands? Better make sure you wash your hands in as hot water as you can take, because the water in the bathroom is coming from the same holding tank with all that bacteria. So since we're on the water theme, I just shared that as well. All right. Now, in the midst of route capacity cuts, in the midst of shrinking seats, shrinking airline flights, high airfares, high oil prices, it's not stopping some airlines from doubling and tripling down in the midst of all this. I'll give you two examples. Delta Airlines just announcing 6 new nonstop routes. Take a look. Now, notice they're not starting till October, but they're announcing them now. Hopefully they know something we know about, or we don't know about when the Iran conflict's going to end, but they're doing it. Some interesting destinations there that you can see. But Delta's not alone. American has announced 5 new routes Now they haven't posted them yet, but I can tell you what they are. These are international routes: Naples, Munich, Copenhagen, Quito, and Santiago from different American Airlines gateway cities. So that's pretty cool. All right, let's go down the list and say hi to some folks. Linda's saying hi from Naples, Florida. Still hot and humid. I think it's hot and humid everywhere in the United States today. Here's one. Oh, Jim and Harriet coming in number 2 from Richmond, Virginia. Nice to see you guys back online here. Priya is now watching from Northern Virginia. Paul's saying greetings from hot and humid Ashland, Virginia. It's all hot and humid today, guys. Okay. Hi, Peter from Smoky, Long Island. Yeah, the Canadian wildfires, that wind is heading south. In fact, the wind is coming from the south today. And I have to tell you, meaning it's heading southwest, that's a little bit of a help, but it's going to switch to north anytime soon. And we are, almost to the verge of wearing masks indoors in parts of Manhattan and Long Island. The residual effects of those Canadian wildfires are being felt. Judy's saying hi from Scottsdale. All right, Judy. Nancy saying hello from, Smoky, Illinois. Here we go again, guys. It's going to be hot. Sandy saying hi from Charlotte. Scott's saying hello from a smoky Chicago. Listen to this. John Lappel, though, being the contrarian traveler is, has decided to be in Miami in August. I have no idea why, John, but greetings to you. Salim is saying thank you. All right, Alexander saying greetings from heat wavy Zurich. Here we go. All of Europe's on fire, too. With record temperatures, most hotels, here it comes, without air conditioning. All right. Colleen saying hello from Corte Madeira's Book Passage. We love that bookstore, Colleen. I've done a number of my book signings there in the past. To me, I love supporting independent bookstores, and Book Passage is one of the best. The most dangerous thing for me about that bookstore is I buy so many books when I'm there. And one of the reasons is I always like to buy books. But the reason why I like to buy books there, not just to support independent bookstores, is because it's not a chain and you're going to ship the books, let's say, back here to New York. They charge you maybe $10 to ship, but you don't pay tax. Now, if it was Barnes & Noble, you'd pay tax. Sort of a dual standard there. But let's hear it for Book Passes. They have great writers' conferences there. I think you're at one right now. Heartily endorse them. Camilla's saying hi from Tucson. We know that's hot. Mary Louise. I can also call you Mary Lou. Good morning from hot Tempe. I know that. Am I seeing, Jim and Harriet want to know, am I seeing any slowdown of travel to the Middle East? Yeah. Empty seats. Now, obviously, VFR, visiting friends and relatives, they're filling the plane. But business travel, forget it. A lot of empty seats on those flights. Now, what are the airlines doing? They're reducing capacity, number of flights. So while the planes appear full or as full, when you look at the total numbers, they're not. All right. Hey, we got a hello from Thailand. Sawadee. Melanie saying hi from Miami. Thank you for those nice words. Paul's saying, I don't have YouTube Prime. First time this happened. Constant interruptions in your broadcast with commercials that I can't turn off. I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never heard of YouTube Prime. My shows appear on Amazon, Apple TV, and YouTube. They also appear on PBS. So let me know what's really going on there, Paul, because I'm not aware of it. Iris is saying hi from New York City. Priya is saying, me too. I saw ads in between this live stream. Are you kidding? I'm going to ask Anthony on my team back in LA to check this out. So you're talking about this particular broadcast I'm doing right now. It's being interrupted by ads. Okay, not to my knowledge, but thank you for letting us know. Anthony will check that out. All right. Iris saying hello from your friends at Mikado Safaris. For all my friends at Mikado that do such a great job, remember we're premiering our new special, the 1-hour Royal Tour of Lesotho, on September 21st, right here in New York. I hope you guys will come along and see it. Okay. John is saying we'll be in Manhattan. Oh, okay. Nicely done, John. Michelle's saying my hubby got a free upgrade from economy to comfort on Delta this week. Okay. Is he a frequent flyer, or do they just have a lot of empty seats and they're being kind? All right. Sorry to hear about all the ads, guys. I'm getting a lot of feedback from you on this. We will definitely look into it because it's not supposed to be that way, and we apologize for that. Let's go to we got to go to the photo of the week, and I love this photo. You know what that is? It's the Brandenburg Gate. We're talking Berlin, and right very close to the Brandenburg Gate. And by the way, Jeff Keith took that photo, and he said, I did this on a recent trip to Berlin. I wanted to get an evening shot of the Brandenburg Gate. Had to wait until after 10 p.m. for the shot. The Berlin Wall had passed just on the other side of the gate. It's true. And nearby in the victory column with Winged Victory atop. Lots of stories right there. In fact, that gate is walking distance to one of my favorite hotels. It's a Kempinski hotel called the Adlon. Some of you may remember the Adlon. That's where Michael Jackson held the baby out the window. But in any case, thank you, Jeff, for that great. And once again, it's the light. It's the light, not just of the gate, but the sky above it. If you think you've got a photo that qualifies, just like Jeff's, for the photo of the week, you know what to do. Send it to photocontest@petergreenberg.com. And if we agree with you, it goes right up there. We celebrated a sad anniversary, not celebrated, acknowledged on TWA Flight 800. But earlier this week, our pal, Captain Sully Sullenberger, made a remarkable and sad announcement that he's been diagnosed with the early signs of Alzheimer's. Sully, of course, January 15th, 2009, a day I remember well, the Miracle on the Hudson, where he basically saved a lot of lives, landing on that very cold January day in the Hudson River when all those birds hit his two engines upon takeoff from LaGuardia on that flight to Charlotte. Sully, I worked with Sully a number of times at CBS together on stories we worked on together. He's been a guest on this show many times. By the way, I hope to get him back. But if you get a chance, he posted this in a public forum about his diagnosis and what he wants people to know. I hope you get a chance to read it and realize the courage it took to even talk about that. Another good friend of mine, Bill Ritter, the anchor on local ABC here in New York, made a similar announcement recently and retired from anchoring that broadcast because of his diagnosis. It's just, it's being reported on more, but that news is also being shared as we all search for a cure and at least how to manage it as well. So think good thoughts for both Bill Ritter here in New York and Sully out in California. We love you guys. And we just hope you're around a whole lot longer because you have so much to give and you've given so much already. Bill, by the way, I think the longest standing anchor in New York history on the news. And what a great job. And of course, Sully, Miracle on the Hudson, but had flown for so many years before that. And the lessons that he has to share with us about aviation safety, which is what he and I talk about when we do the radio show together, that have not necessarily been either learned or applied. That is a service for which we are eternally grateful to him for sharing with us. So I just wanted to share that with you as well. In the meantime, our radio show this week coming from Castle Resorts in Honolulu. They have an amazing operation. There are 22 separate condominium complexes, a great alternative for families who travel. That's where we headquartered for the broadcast. We'll have more updates about everything we've talked about today on that show on Saturday, again, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. I hope you get a chance to catch it. And in the meantime, I'll see you next week from another remote location. And no, it will not be in New York, but it'll be hot. You can count on that. Everybody have a great weekend. Anthony, thank you for helping us out. We'll check on those ads for you guys because that's a surprise to us. And I'll see you next week.
This is a 207th Street bound A express train. The next stop is 168th Street.
And we're at the closing doors, please.